The signal arrived on a Tuesday morning. Dr. Lisa Morgan was drinking cold coffee in the observation center when the alarm started. Not the test alarms that happened every month. Real alarms. The kind that made people stop talking and stare at screens. Captain Kevin Hayes was at the military base when the message came through. He was reading reports about the new supply routes to the Mars colony when his commander ran into his office. The look on the man's face told Kevin that something had changed. Everything had changed. The message came from deep space. It came in standard mathematical patterns, the kind that took years to figure out, but only hours to understand once you knew what you were looking for. Humans had been listening to space for 200 years. They had sent their own messages out into the dark, hoping someone would answer back. Now someone had. The aliens called themselves the Krull Collective. They had been watching Earth for the last 50 years, watching the radio signals escape into space, watching the ships leave orbit, watching humans grow bigger and bolder. They had seen enough. Now they wanted to talk. The message was simple and direct. The Krull said that Earth was entering an important moment in its history. They said that humans had potential, but lacked the knowledge to survive what was coming. They offered integration. Earth would join the Krull Collective. Humans would learn from their technology. Humans would serve the collective. In return, humans would be protected from the dangers of space. It was a fair trade. The Krull seemed sure that humans would accept. Captain Kevin Hayes read the message 3 times. He was not a young man. He was 52 years old with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes. He had spent his entire life in the military. He had seen conflicts and negotiations. He had learned to understand what people meant when they said something different from what they felt. The Krull message sounded friendly. It sounded fair. It sounded like a gun pointed at your head while someone smiled at you. He called the president. He called the military leaders of every nation. He called Dr. Lisa Morgan at the observation center. Within 4 hours, the world knew about the Krull Collective. Within 12 hours, every government had started asking the same question. What do we do? Dr. Morgan watched the signal patterns for hours. She studied every word in the message. She was 48 years old and had spent her life looking at the stars. This was the moment she had always thought about. Contact. Proof that humans were not alone. But there was something wrong. She could feel it in the patterns, in the way the message was constructed. It was not a greeting between equals. It was an instruction. The United Nations Security Council met in emergency session. For 18 hours they argued. Some nations wanted to accept. They said the Krull had better technology. Fighting would be pointless. Humans would only die. Other nations refused. They said Earth belonged to humans. They said no one had the right to take that away. The arguments went in circles. Captain Hayes listened to all of it. He listened to the fear. He listened to the hope. He listened to the anger. Then he did something bold. He sent a message back to the Krull. The message was short. Hayes refused integration. He said that Earth was human. He said that humans would not serve. He said they would fight if they had to. The words were simple. The meaning was clear. No. For 3 days, there was silence. Then the ships arrived. They came from the edge of the solar system, moving faster than anything humans had ever built. They were enormous. A single Krull ship was larger than a city. When humans first saw them on the telescopes, there was a moment of pure terror. The ships were black, smooth, and wrong. They did not look like anything that should exist. They looked like something from a nightmare. There were 23 ships. They took position around Earth. They did not attack. They did not send more messages. They just waited. But the meaning was clear. Commander Vex had arrived. Vex was the Krell military leader. He had conquered 17 worlds. He had never faced resistance. Every species the Krell had ever contacted had accepted integration. They had seen the ships. They had understood the situation. They had surrendered. Earth was going to be the same. Vex was certain of this. He sent a new message. He gave Earth 1 month. If humans did not surrender by then, he would take what he needed by force. The blockade began immediately. No ships could leave Earth. No ships could arrive. Earth was cut off from the rest of the universe. In the cities around the world, people panicked. In some places, there was rioting. In others, there was prayer. Governments collapsed or came together. The world had to choose. Would they fight something that seemed impossible to fight? Or would they accept what seemed like an impossible choice? Captain Hayes called a meeting. He brought together military leaders, scientists, engineers, and government officials. He stood in front of them and said something that surprised everyone. He said Earth would fight. He did not say they would win. He did not promise victory. He said they would fight. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood up. She was small compared to the military men in the room, but her voice was loud. She said she had an idea. She said that the Krell ships were built for peaceful space travel and short, easy conflicts. She said the ships would not be prepared for something like Earth. Earth was not prepared either. But Earth had something that mattered. Earth had nothing to lose. The room went quiet. Over the next 3 weeks, humans started preparing. Underground bunkers became command centers. Scientists studied the Krell ships from every angle. Engineers started building weapons from Earth materials and captured Krell technology. Soldiers trained for a war that seemed impossible. Families said goodbye to each other. And above the planet, the Krell ships waited. Vex watched the humans move around like insects, building their small defenses. He was not worried. He had crushed stronger species with more advanced technology. These humans were nothing. But Vex had made a mistake. He had never met a species that would rather die than surrender. He was about to learn what humans were really made of. The first month was ending. Vex sent a final message. Earth had 1 day left to surrender. The message was patient. It was kind. It was absolutely final. Captain Kevin Hayes received the message. He was tired. He had not slept in days. His uniform was dirty. His hand shook a little. But when he looked at the screens showing the Krell ships, his face was calm. He opened a communication channel. He sent one message back to Commander Vex. One word: no. The attack came at dawn. Vex sent down a single destroyer, just to test the human defenses. It was a calculated move. One ship would show humans the futility of resistance. It would break their will before the real assault began. The destroyer descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling god. It was beautiful and terrible. Its weapons could level a city in seconds. Its shields could turn aside any human attack. It was the most advanced technology that humans had ever seen. And then it exploded. The explosion was not clean. It was not a direct hit. It was something messier and worse. The Krell destroyer had never encountered anything like Earth's magnetosphere. The planet itself was a weapon. Its magnetic field, which the Krell scanners had recorded and dismissed as primitive interference, was generating pulses that disrupted the ship's shield frequency. The pulses were crude and uneven, but they were effective. The destroyer's shields had flickered for 1 second. That was enough. Above the planet, Vex felt something he had never felt before. Shock. In the command bunker deep underground. Captain Hayes and Dr. Morgan watched the screens. The destroyer was going down. It was still firing, still fighting, but it was falling. When it hit the ocean, the explosion was visible from space. Hayes turned to the people around him. He said nothing. He did not need to. What happened next changed everything. Vex sent more ships. 3 destroyers and 2 larger cruisers. They came down harder and faster. But humans were ready. Dr. Morgan had figured out the pattern. The Krell ships operated on specific shield frequencies. The Earth's magnetosphere could be made to disrupt those frequencies if you understood how to use them. Engineer Thomas Murphy had an idea. He took the pattern and worked backward. If the magnetosphere created certain pulses naturally, what if humans amplified those pulses? What if humans helped the planet fight? Murphy and his team worked day and night. They created devices from satellite parts, solar panels, and copper wire. They were crude. They were fragile. They might not work, but they did work. When the next Krell attack came, humans were ready. The underground facilities amplified the natural magnetic pulses. The Krell shields flickered. The Krell ships had to retreat. The Krell had never retreated before. Vex was losing patience. He also was losing ships. 16 had been damaged. 2 had been destroyed. The humans were not supposed to be able to do this. They did not have the technology. They did not have the knowledge. But they had something else. They had desperation, and desperation makes people creative. He sent a message to the Krell Council. He told them that Earth was more difficult than expected. He did not tell them that he was failing. The Krell Council did not accept failure. Vex had always completed every mission. He was not about to let a primitive planet change that record. He decided on a new strategy. He sent waves of attack fighters instead of large ships. The fighters were smaller, faster, harder to hit. The humans could not amplify the magnetosphere to cover everything. There would be gaps. The fighters would get through in the cities below. Humans prepared. The evacuation routes had been established weeks ago. Civilians were moved underground. Soldiers took defensive positions. Everyone understood what was happening. This was not going to be a quick battle. This was going to be a long war, and Earth was going to fight it with whatever it had. Captain Alexandra Torres was a pilot. She was young, only 34, but she was the best pilot Earth had ever produced. She had been training since the blockade started. She knew the Krell fighter patterns. She knew their tactics. She knew their weaknesses. When the fighter waves came, Torres was in the sky. She was flying in a modified Earth fighter that had Krell weapons mounted on the wings. It was a nightmare combination. The plane was not built for such weapons. But it worked. Torres shot down 7 Krell fighters before her fuel ran out. She made it back to the base with a destroyed engine and half her controls not working. When she landed, the base crew cheered. For the first time, humans had not just defended. Humans had attacked. Humans had won, but there was a cost. 53 military personnel had died. 300 civilians had been killed in the bombardment. Entire cities had been damaged. Food supplies were running low. Medicine was scarce. Hospital beds were full. Earth was being broken piece by piece, and the Krell were just beginning. Vex sent message after message. He offered surrender terms. He offered to spare cities that agreed to join the collective. He offered protection to military units that would lay down their weapons. No one accepted. The humans were broken, tired, and still fighting. Vex did not understand it. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like it. Lieutenant Nathan Cole was in charge of demolition. He was a tough man, 50 years old, with burn scars on his hands from old weapons tests. He had never thought he would use his skills in a real war. Now he and his team were setting explosives on Krell observation stations. They were rigging traps. They were preparing for ground invasion. But more than that, they were listening. Cole's team had captured fragments of Krell communication. The signals were coded, encrypted, protected by technology that humans were not supposed to understand. But humans understood mathematics. Slowly, bit by bit, the signals started making sense. Cole brought the translated signals to Captain Hayes. Hayes read them carefully. His face went white. The signals were not about conquering Earth. They were about testing the Krell military. A group within the Krell Council had challenged the old leadership. They wanted to prove that the new generation of commanders was better. Earth was the test case. Earth was supposed to be easy. An easy victory would prove the challengers right. A failure here would destroy their political power. Vex was not trying to conquer Earth because Earth was valuable. Vex was trying to conquer Earth because his career, his reputation, and maybe his life depended on it. Hayes looked at Cole and Torres and Morgan. He looked at the screens showing the Krell ships still in orbit. He looked at the map showing what was left of Earth's defenses. He said one word: "We have an idea." The plan was dangerous and simple at the same time. Captain Hayes and Dr. Morgan knew that the Krell operated through hierarchy and logic. They did not think like humans. They did not have the concept of sacrifice for freedom. They did not understand the idea of fighting when victory seemed impossible. But they did understand honor. They did understand strength. They did understand the power of a challenge. Hayes sat in the command center and began writing a message. He wrote it in the Krell language, using their communication patterns. The words were careful. The meaning was direct. He addressed the Krell soldiers and officers. He acknowledged their strength and their technology. He told them that humanity saw their power. But he asked them a question. Was it honorable to conquer a world that would never stop fighting? Was it victory if the conquered people never accepted defeat? Would they fight forever, spending ships and soldiers and resources with no end in sight? He did not beg for mercy. He did not ask for peace. He simply pointed out that conquering Earth would cost the Krell more than Earth was worth. Morgan recorded the message. She prepared it for broadcast. But before they could send it, something else happened. A Krell observation station had been damaged in a recent attack by Cole's demolition team. The station was falling out of orbit. The Krell would abandon it soon. But Torres had an idea. She believed that if they could get inside the station, they could learn why the Krell really wanted Earth. She believed the proof was there. Torres selected a team. 5 soldiers volunteered immediately. Everyone knew the mission might be suicide. A small human ship did not match Krell firepower. But when the Krell were busy responding to an attack on the other side of the planet, Torres made her move. The human shuttle was ancient by space standards. It was a cargo vessel that had been modified with stolen Krell technology. It was slow and it was weak, but it was human-made. It was clever. Torres flew it through the debris field of broken satellites and shattered Krell probes. She approached the falling station from an angle that the Krell would not expect. The Krell defense systems did not even see them until Torres was already docking. Inside the station, the team moved fast. The gravity was failing. The lights were flickering. The station was dying, and they had maybe 20 minutes before it was too damaged to access the data core. Sergeant William Brooks was the data specialist. He was young, only 28, but he had been a computer engineer before the war. He plugged into the Krell system and started copying everything. Files, logs, communications, all of it. The data streamed into the small portable drive. Meanwhile, alarms were blaring. The Krell had noticed the human presence. A patrol unit was coming toward their position. Torres and the rest of the team prepared their weapons. They had maybe minutes. Brooks's hands moved fast over the keyboard. The drive was almost full. Almost. The patrol was 50 meters away. The doors to the data center were starting to close. Brooks pulled the drive free and ran. The team made it back to the shuttle with seconds to spare. Krell weapons fire chased them as they disengaged from the station. The shuttle was damaged. One engine was not responding properly. But they were alive, and they had the data. When Torres brought the shuttle back down to Earth, she was considered a hero. But what she had brought back was even more important. Dr. Morgan started analyzing the data that very night. What she found was shocking. The Krell Council had not sent Vex to Earth to conquer it. They had sent him to test him. A younger group of Krell commanders had challenged the old guard. They said the original leadership was weak and too cautious. They said they could take on new territories more efficiently. Earth was supposed to be their proof. But Earth was supposed to be easy. The data showed that the Krell had classified humans as resource-level intelligent life. That meant smart enough to farm, but not smart enough to fight back effectively. Vex had been told that the conquest would take days, maybe a week. A victory here would have shown that the younger generation was ready to lead. It would have shifted all the power within the Krell government. Now Vex was failing. The conquest had gone on for weeks. Humans were still fighting. The Krell had lost ships. The younger commanders who had sent Vex on this mission were starting to look foolish. If Earth was truly an easy conquest, how could primitive humans resist for this long? Morgan brought the information to Captain Hayes. Hayes read through everything carefully. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a weapon. Hayes said, "We are going to use Vex against the Krell Council." He explained his plan. The information Torres had stolen would be broadcast throughout Krell space. Every Krell sector would see that Vex was failing against primitives. The younger commanders who had chosen him would be exposed. They had claimed to be more efficient, that they had chosen a commander who could not conquer a single world. The embarrassment would be enormous. But there was a problem. If Hayes broadcast that information, Vex would know that his political career was ending. Vex would know that he would be blamed for the failure. Desperate men did dangerous things. Vex might decide that if he could not conquer Earth, he would destroy it. Morgan said, "That is a risk we have to take." Cole said, "No, it is not." Everyone looked at him. Cole said, "We broadcast the information, yes. But we also make it clear to the Krell Council that they can still save Vex's reputation. They can still make this work. But it will require honoring the humans who refuse to surrender. It will require treating Earth as an equal, not as a prize. If the Council wants to prove that the new generation of commanders is better than the old guard, they will have to do it through diplomacy. They will have to negotiate." The room went quiet. It was brilliant. It was also terrifying. They were going to trust that the Krell cared more about internal politics than about conquest. They were going to trust that the Krell Council would care about embarrassment. They were betting the survival of Earth on that trust. Hayes looked around the room. He looked at Morgan and Torres and Cole and Brooks. He looked at the soldiers and engineers and scientists who had been fighting this war. He said, "Prepare the broadcast." The message went out to Krell space the next morning. Everything was included. The captured data. The proof that Vex was failing. The proof that the younger commanders had made a mistake. The evidence that Earth would never surrender. And then Earth waited. The response from the Krell Council came within hours. But it was not what anyone expected. Vex received the broadcast. He saw his failure displayed for every Krell in the galaxy to see. He saw the proof that he had been played. The younger commanders had sent him on this mission, knowing it would be difficult. They had wanted him to fail so they could take control. They had offered him an impossible task and called it an opportunity. Vex's response was not diplomatic. It was not logical. It was the response of a military commander whose career and reputation had just been destroyed. He sent a new message to Earth. He said the blockade was over, but not because of negotiation. The blockade was over because he was coming down to the planet himself. He was going to take Earth by force, destroy the human resistance, and wipe away the embarrassment with conquest. No politics would save him now. Only victory would matter. Only blood would wash away the shame. He began moving his remaining ships toward Earth's atmosphere. In the command bunker, Hayes watched the screens. He had expected the Council to pressure Vex into negotiation. Instead, Vex was doubling down. Vex was going to go all in. Morgan's voice was steady. He's going to kill us all. Hayes did not answer. He was thinking. He was calculating. He was looking at the one move that remained. He called Torres to his office. He said, "I need you to do something impossible." Torres was tired. Her uniform was dirty. Her hair was tied back in a rough knot. But her eyes were sharp. What? Hayes told her about the Krell moon base. It orbited at a specific distance from Earth. It was barely manned. Only a skeleton crew was there now, because most of the Krell forces were engaged in the assault on Earth. The base controlled communication relays. The base also had an escape shuttle. Hayes said, "If we could take that base, we could broadcast directly to the Krell Council. We could send a message that the Council cannot ignore." Torres said, "And how do I get there without a ship that Vex will not see coming?" Hayes said, "You do not get there." "I get there?" Torres looked at him like he had gone crazy. Hayes said, "I go in person. I go to the base. I defeat their guards. And then I broadcast a challenge to Vex. I challenge him to single combat. One human versus one Krell. Winner takes Earth." Torres said, "That is suicide." Hayes said, "Probably. But right now, Vex is coming here to destroy everything. My way, at least we have a chance. His way, we have nothing." Torres wanted to argue, but she had learned something in the weeks of fighting. Sometimes the impossible was the only option left. It took 2 hours to plan the mission. It took another hour to prepare. Hayes put on a combat suit. He took a weapons pack. He took a small ship that had been designed to look like Krell debris. Cole's team had built it weeks ago, just in case something crazy like this became necessary. As Hayes was walking to the ship, Morgan stopped him. She did not say anything. She just looked at him. Hayes understood. "This was goodbye." Hayes said, "Tell them I fought because humans deserve to exist. Tell them I did not surrender. Tell them I was not alone." Then he flew toward the moon base. The base had only 12 Krell soldiers. They were young soldiers. They were not battle-hardened. They had been left behind because they were not needed for the assault on Earth. They were the least skilled troops in the Krell fleet, but they were still Krell. They were still stronger and faster than humans. Hayes landed the fake debris ship on the dark side of the base. He cut the engines. He moved inside the structure like a ghost. He took out the first 3 guards without them even knowing they were under attack. The others heard the alarms and tried to respond, but Hayes was faster. He was desperate. He was fighting for the survival of his species. By the time the base was secure, Hayes had been wounded twice. He was bleeding. His suit was damaged, but he was alive. He made his way to the communication center. He initiated a direct broadcast to the Krell Council. Then he did something even more dangerous. He sent a personal message to Commander Vex. Hayes said, "I am the captain of Earth's defense forces. You have come to conquer my world. I propose an alternative. You and I will meet on neutral ground. We will fight. The winner takes all. If you win, Earth will surrender without further resistance. If I win, you will order your forces to stand down. A war decided by 2 fighters instead of 2 armies." Hayes paused. He wanted to make sure the next part was clear. He said, "This is what humans call honor. I understand you value honor. Prove to the Krell Council and to the galaxy that you are worthy of command. Do not destroy a world. Do not kill innocent people. Fight me. Prove that the Krell are better than we are through strength, not through slaughter. Hayes ended the transmission. In orbit, Vex received the message. Around him, his remaining fleet was preparing for the final assault on Earth. The message came through every speaker in his command ship. A human was challenging him to single combat. A human was offering to end the war through honor. A human was playing directly to the one thing that might stop Vex from destroying everything. The Krell Council was listening to everything. They would see if Vex accepted. They would judge him by his answer. Vex was silent for a long time. His officers waited. His soldiers waited. The entire Krell fleet hung in space, waiting to see what their commander would do. Finally, Vex responded. He said yes. He would meet the human in single combat. The location would be Earth's moon. The time would be in 4 hours. The assault stopped immediately. The Krell ships held position. Vex was going to meet his fate. In the command bunker on Earth, Morgan and Torres and Cole and Brooks watched the screens. They saw Vex accept the challenge. They understood what was about to happen. Torres said, "Captain Hayes just volunteered to fight for all of us." Cole said, "No, he did not volunteer. He decided." There is a difference. Morgan was already preparing. She was gathering medical equipment. She was preparing a ship to get Hayes back from the moon if he survived. But in her heart, she knew the truth. Captain Kevin Hayes was not coming home. He was walking toward the only kind of victory that humans could still achieve. The moon was gray and dead and silent. Hayes landed his ship in a crater that would shield him from observation. He stepped out onto the rocky surface in a combat suit designed for low gravity. His heart was beating fast. He was not afraid. Fear was too small a word for what he felt. Vex arrived 4 hours later. His transport ship was massive, a full military shuttle designed to carry troops into battle. It did not need to be this large. But Vex wanted to make a statement. He wanted to show that even in single combat, the Krell were superior. Vex walked out onto the moon's surface. He was taller than Hayes expected. The Krell were an engineered species, built over centuries for combat and leadership. Vex stood 9 feet tall. His body was covered in muscle. His skin was gray and hard like armor. He had been in 1,000 fights. He had never lost. Hayes felt small. He felt weak. He also felt something else. He felt the weight of his entire species standing behind him. He felt the hope of everyone on Earth. He felt the strength that came from knowing what he was fighting for. Vex looked at Hayes and laughed. The laugh was harsh and cold. He said, "You are small, human. This will be over quickly." Hayes did not respond. He moved into a fighting stance. Vex attacked first. He came forward like a force of nature. His fist was the size of a human head. Hayes dodged left. The gravity on the moon was low. His movements were different here. Slower, heavier. But the low gravity meant that Vex's strength could work against him too. When he punched and missed, he had to work harder to adjust. Hayes struck back. His fist hit Vex in the side. It was like hitting steel. Vex grunted but did not seem hurt. Vex swung his other arm. Hayes barely ducked. The blow would have killed him if it had connected. They fought for 10 minutes. Then 20. Then an hour. Hayes was bleeding from cuts on his face and arms. His suit was torn in 3 places. But he was still moving. He was still fighting. Vex was frustrated. He had never fought anyone who would not fall down. He had never fought someone who would not surrender. Every punch he threw, Hayes came back. Every time Vex knocked him down, Hayes got back up. The Krell commander was strong, but humans had something else. Humans had will. Humans had the ability to keep moving when every part of their body was screaming at them to stop. Hayes learned. He learned that Vex was fast, but not as fast as a human. He learned that Vex was strong, but could be worn down. He learned that Vex fought like someone who had always been superior. He did not expect to have to struggle. 2 hours into the fight, Hayes got inside Vex's defense. He grabbed the Krell commander's arm. He used Vex's own momentum against him. He threw Vex down hard onto the moon's surface. For a second, Vex did not move. Hayes stood over him, breathing hard. His vision was blurry. His whole body hurt, but he was still standing. Vex got to his feet slowly. Blood was running from his mouth. For the first time, Hayes saw doubt in his eyes. Vex said, "You cannot beat me." Hayes said, "I already am." The third hour of fighting was different. Vex was tired now. He was moving slower. Hayes was still weak, still hurt, still bleeding. But Hayes did not have to be better than Vex. Hayes just had to survive longer. They fought until the sun set and rose again on the moon. Hayes' suit was nearly destroyed. Vex's armor was dented and cracked. Both of them were barely standing. Vex tried one more attack. He moved forward. Hayes saw it coming. He dodged. Vex lost his balance in the low gravity. Hayes caught him. This time, Hayes threw him down and held him there. Vex tried to push Hayes away, but his strength was gone. The Krell commander was defeated. Hayes could have killed him. He could have ended Vex's life. On Earth, in the command bunker, people were screaming at their screens, begging Hayes to do it. They wanted revenge. They wanted blood. But Hayes did something different. He offered Vex a hand. He said, "You lost this fight. You know what that means. Among your people, the loser accepts the winner's judgment. I am judging you now." Vex looked at the offered hand with confusion. Hayes said, "I am offering you the same choice you offered to Earth. Integration, but not submission. Not slavery. Cooperation. You can return to the Krell Council and tell them that you have lost. You have failed. But you have also learned something. You have learned that we will not break. You have learned that humans are worth more than you thought." Vex was silent. Then, slowly, he reached up and took Hayes' hand. Hayes pulled him to his feet. By the time they reached the communication center, the entire galaxy was watching. The Krell Council had been observing the fight. They had seen their greatest commander defeated by a small, weak human. Vex sent the order immediately. All Krell forces were to stand down. The blockade was over. Earth was no longer under siege. Then Vex said something that shocked everyone. He said the humans were correct. Earth was not a prize. Earth could never be conquered. It could only be respected. The Krell Council received the message and did something unexpected. They removed the younger commanders from power. They reinstated the older leadership. And they sent official representatives to Earth to negotiate a peace treaty. 3 months later, the first Krell diplomatic shuttle landed on Earth. It carried a formal apology and an offer of alliance. Captain Hayes received them in a military uniform that was clean for the first time in months. The Krell representative said, "We have studied your species. You are not the strongest. You are not the smartest. But you are unbendable. You refuse to accept chains. The Krell Collective respects this. We offer you alliance," Hayes said. Earth accepts. In the cities of Earth, people celebrated. They had survived. They had not been conquered. They had not been enslaved. They had remained free. But Hayes knew something that others did not. He knew that Earth's greatest victory was not in battle. It was in the moment when he offered mercy to the one who would have destroyed everything. It was in the moment when he showed that humans valued more than just winning. That night, Hayes walked out under the stars. Dr. Morgan was there, looking up at the sky. She said, "They're talking about making you a global leader. A unified government leader." Hayes said, "No, I am a soldier. I did what soldiers do. I defended my home." Morgan said, "But you showed them something else. You showed that humans can choose mercy. You showed that we are stronger than just weapons and war." Hayes looked at the stars and thought about all the other species out there. Species that might someday try to take Earth. Species that would learn the same lesson that Vex have learned. Earth was not a prize. Earth was a cage that humans had built, and humans would never leave it. Earth belonged to humanity. It always would. That was the real victory. Not the defeating of the Krell fleet, but the knowledge that nothing, no matter how strong or advanced, could ever force humans to surrender who they were. The blockade was over. The war was ended. Earth was free. And humanity had proven something that would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. Humans could not be broken. Humans could not be conquered. Humans could not accept chains, not because they were invincible, but because they refused